All right, Power Breakfast continues here on Citizen TV. Thanks for joining us. We've got a discussion coming up here with our special guest, Agatha Juma, Head of Public-Private Dialogue for KEPSA. Thanks for being here. I know traffic might have been something crazy this morning.
I overestimated it, so I was here in good time.
Okay,
yes,
good. Agatha is going to help us talk about networking a little bit and just, you know, the importance of creating and maintaining strong professional networks. I will be upfront in telling you that I am not one of the people who enjoy networking. It's just...
Well, neither do I. I struggle with it.
Yes.
I really do struggle with it.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to get a couple pointers from you, and hopefully, you know, after this interview, I'll have learned a thing or two. Now, I just want to establish the fact that networking goes beyond just being social, right? I mean, it has this reputation of being, you know, some people like myself tend to think of it as being superficial, small talk, like why am I going out of my way to do something that feels uncomfortable for me? So how about we define exactly what networking is first?
Networking is getting to know people as human beings.
Okay.
I'll put it as simply as that. I also struggle with you walk into a room, it's a networking function, and
oh gosh,
do I have to talk to anyone in the room? The first thing you do is you walk in and you're wondering, who do I know here?
Right.
Scan, there's no one I know here. Oh gosh, 2 hours
what
of
happens
agony.
Next? Yeah.
But it's getting to know human beings, people as human beings, and making connections, not necessarily to get anything out of it, but because it's apparently the human thing to do.
Wow, interesting. So let's talk about different personality types and how they factor into networking. I am an extreme introvert. So for me to leave my house to go to a networking event, like, I don't know, it has to be mandatory on some official job level. So there are just people who are more naturals at networking. Is that correct?
The people who are naturals at it, you meet someone and within 5 minutes they know 5 people in the room.
Exactly.
I struggle. I am also introverted, and people assume that introverts stand in a corner. I do speak when I need to speak. So introverted doesn't mean you can't communicate, but you just so much prefer your own company.
Right.
And we struggle. We struggle because you're wondering, okay, first, what are the first words I'm going to say? And secondly, why?
Yeah.
Why do I really have to? But human beings surprise you. When you just go and introduce yourself to someone, it's the most powerful thing. Hi, I'm Agatha. I see you're here for X. How did you get here?
Okay. Let's talk about that intro, that like first 30 seconds of you introducing yourself to someone. Because I understand at some point networking has to be a mutually beneficial you know, arrangement. It's not just me coming to sell myself to you and saying I'm this and that and I'm a wonderful person. So what information is mandatory there in that intro? Other than your name, what other things should you first say?
I think what has made networking harder is the assumption that you need to be selling something, or someone who's introducing themselves to you is trying to sell something. It's about human connection, pure and simple. So I will meet you, Joey, and get to have a conversation for half an hour, and we probably will never talk for another 2 years.
Wow.
And the next time I'm looking for someone who would be great at moderating an event, I remember a conversation I had with Joey. So you were not selling yourself to me. We met as two human beings and expanded our network.
Okay, that's interesting.
I know a guy. When you're looking for a plumber, when you're looking for a hairdresser, when you're looking, I know a guy. So they may not have been useful to you at that point, but you store the information.
Interesting. You know, how important is it, for example, if you're going into a networking event or somewhere where you know there's going to be a plethora of people that you can connect with, of researching before you get there? Because I've heard maybe that could be helpful, that you at least know a couple of people who are going to be there, you know something about them, so having that conversation with them is easier.
It does help to know the kind of group you're going to meet, not necessarily the individuals, but you're tagging along to an event, you're crashing a wedding.
Right.
What kind of people are you hoping to meet? What kind of people will be there? Are there people who can be useful to you in your professional life, in your social life, or not at all? But you're just building your contact base. The most important thing that makes networking key in today's society is there's 3 things to wealth creation and to networking and anything else. There's time, there's money, and there's knowledge.
Okay.
Someone who has knowledge, which is a little bit different from information does not necessarily need time or money, or is at a better place than someone who has time and money.
Okay.
Because knowledge is what gives you market intelligence, is what gives you the money, the access to the money. It's what can give you the information about the people whose time you need to acquire to create wealth. So networking is about acquiring knowledge from people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there's also a balance, I feel, that happens there when you introduce yourself to someone, between kind of being interested in them and proving that you're an interesting person as well. So it's a fine line. It's like, how much do I sell myself versus how much do I show this person that I'm interested in listening to what they have to say or what they do.
You know, Joey, you can always tell when someone is trying to sell themselves to you. They identified you, they did their research before the event, and identified this person works at Citizen TV, they can get XYZ from the questions they ask, and that puts you off. But if it's someone making conversation, and in the tidbits of making conversation without trying to sell yourself, common interest topic, it's very cool. So where did you get that lovely purple dress, or that purple skirt? And there you find information. I'm put off by people who try and sell themselves very overtly before you establish interest. Because human beings do business with people they like. And with all due respect to insurance salespeople, they've made it very hard to like people who sell themselves hard when you meet for the first time. But if you meet someone and you have a conversation and you identify common areas of interest, then it's easy to sell anything to them. After I've met you, I'm meeting you today for the first time, and we've had a small conversation. The next time we meet, or even after this, you tell me, there's something I want to talk to you about. It's easier, rather than I've met you in the first 5 minutes.
I'm already... So
this is what I do.
Human connection, like you keep saying. So make that connection first before you jump into, you know, selling whatever it is.
Into selling whatever it is. And that's why you find people who are in school together, people who are in campus together, they made great contacts because when you met, they were not selling anything. Yeah.
Interesting. What are some of the keys to making sure that you make a lasting impression, though? Because at these networking events, not that I've ever been, but I imagine the horror in my mind of there just being, you know, so many different people, so many different conversations that you have over the course of 1 or 2 hours. So what is it that you're going to do to make sure that somebody remembers you after such an event?
Without looking like you're pushing yourself to themselves. One is introduce yourself. Very simply, I'm Agatha Juma, and I'm here for, or I was invited by, do you know them? Do you know the host? Or I'm here for work, I work at KEPSA. I am here because my sister is a friend to the bride. Very simple, don't complicate it, don't oversell it. I know we've been told many times that make a compliment, unless it's genuine, don't make it. If you tell me
hearing compliments about themselves.
But you can tell when someone is faking it.
True.
Oh, I absolutely love those shoes, and you were thinking, I don't like these shoes. And I've been told many times the heel is spilling. So when someone compliments you just because they've looked you up and said, let me compliment something, it doesn't work. For me, I have learned that we learn how to network and sell ourselves from when we are 2.
Okay.
I want a bicycle when I'm 3. How do I sell myself? You learn how to bargain. It's very natural. It's marketing yourself. And marketing is one of the most natural things for a human being because you learn it from when you're a child. You learn how to get an extra croissant or piece of meat or an extra slice of bread because you endear yourself to your mother, or you endear yourself to whoever it is who's serving. You learn how to endear yourself to a teacher. You learn how to endear yourself to the boy you like or the girl you like. And it doesn't get more complicated than that, and when you complicate it, it's fake. So
it's important to tap into that natural part of us that just knows how to market ourselves.
And even Joy, when you walk into a room of 50 people, you can sort of intuitively tell. It will be easier to communicate with him than him, or her than her. And people tend to gravitate towards someone who's already crowded by people, a big name, and you also want to get the big name. Sometimes they're not the most interesting.
True. That's true. Yeah. So what's, like, on average, let's say you're walking into a networking event or a function, and you're thinking, you know what, I'm trying to work on my networking skills. Do you have a certain number in your head of, I need to meet this many people, or is it just the people that you end up having a connection with, that you end up having an exchange with? I mean, how do you walk into that space?
So for me, I have purposed over the last 1 year that I'm going to try and get a lot more comfortable being around people I don't know. So you walk into a room and say, I have to speak to 5 people.
Okay.
Let's speak to 5 people. Why? So I'll look for someone who can make a great hangout buddy, someone who looks like they could be useful for me at work because you've done your research before and you know in this event that I'm going for, which is not necessarily a networking event, because I doubt that there are many events that are called networking events that are true networking events. They're multi-level marketing or someone selling something. But any function you go to, any room you sit and wait at, is an opportunity to network.
Okay.
So pick 5 people, and from the 5 you need to speak to 10 to walk away with 5 contacts.
Wow.
Which makes it even harder.
Yeah.
But again, if you're doing it because you're trying to sell something, you need to speak to many more people. And if it's just so that you don't twiddle your thumbs too much as you're waiting for the function to end, you don't need to speak to as many people. And for me, if you're not connecting with someone, don't force it.
Yeah, and just like spend time, you know,
don't force it. Move to the next person. It was nice meeting you, and you move on to the next person. Yes.
Interesting. In terms of follow-up, because I've heard conflicting reports on this, that you're supposed to follow up with someone that you met within like 48 hours. But then I've also heard that, you know, don't force it also, like if your paths cross again, then they do. And so what's the protocol there?
Depends on your interest. If it's someone you're really interested in, almost immediately send them a message, send them an email. It was great meeting you at X. I look forward to meeting you in future. If you want to be more deliberate, could we meet up in the next 1 week for coffee?
Right.
Or even be more precise, I mentioned to you that I am in this kind of business, or this is what I do. Would you be interested in furthering this conversation? I could come and visit you in your office. If not, leave it to karma. But karma is not always very efficient and effective in bringing people together, especially when it's something you want. When it's something you want, you have to go out for it. And it's a struggle we have as women. We really struggle with making a connection because you're wondering, will he or she think I'm being too forward?
That was exactly my next question, where I was going to be. As a woman, I get uncomfortable, and I'm like, I hope this guy doesn't get the wrong idea of what I'm trying to accomplish here. You know, I'm not trying to look for a handout or...
That stops us from making great connections, because you're thinking, okay, I met him, he was interesting, but if I follow up, will they think I'm after something?
Exactly.
Sometimes they do, most often they do, but only until you meet this person and you break it down to them. This is purely business. This is purely because I think you would be a good catch for my sister. I'm interested. I'm interested in you. But we lose out on so many opportunities because as women we fear, how will someone judge us? We are so afraid of being judged that we judge ourselves.
True.
Very harshly.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, I get it from their perspective too, that I can see how they would get, you know, a different idea of what, because there are women who go through life like that, you know.
But not necessarily. Most people actually have no intention of hitting on you.
Really? So I'm just flattering myself in my head.
Flattering yourself. It's a woman thing. It's a woman weakness. But you realize, especially with men, more often than not, someone who's interested in you is not interested in you sexually or to hit on you. And you find, like with older men, and this I learned very recently after losing very many opportunities to network, is most of them see you as a daughter, someone they want to hold your hand and walk you along and thinking, this guy can do so much better. But when someone approaches you, you're thinking, oh,
yeah, I see you. In terms of business cards, how important is that to have, just as a, you know, meet and greet, you're going to a social function. Is that key? Do people just exchange numbers these days? I mean,
business cards for business is very important.
Okay.
But I feel that we give and receive too many wasted business cards, because even before we make a connection, the immediate thing that someone does is, so you don't even look at it, because I haven't conversed with you. We've exchanged cards, and we go on and have a conversation. And I'm trying to remember. The girl in a beautiful purple dress. Who was she? If I don't remember her name, because I didn't make a connection with the card. So I have come to learn it's important to have a conversation with someone before you exchange cards, and ensure that someone looks at your card. And you look at their card so that you can connect.
And you can connect those two things. All right, we're going to have a little music from the band just now. Of course, the conversation that we are talking about is networking, creating and maintaining strong professional networks. So if you've got something to say, please use the hashtag PowerBreakfast on Twitter and let us know. All right, continuing this conversation on networking with Agatha Juma, Head of Public-Private Dialogue for KEPS. I've learned quite a bit about the scary word that is networking. But one thing I just wanted to ask you quickly is the impact of social media on the way that we make these connections and the way that we network. Has that changed anything? Because there are some people who are really great at networking online, but not so much in person. So what's happening there?
What's happening is we're hiding behind a veil that sorts out the problem that you and I have of being introverted. But nothing beats person-to-person interaction. On phone, in person, the things we learned when we're just getting into the workplace, and answer a phone call with a smile. When you meet someone, smile, look them in the face. I don't think that social media will ever change that, because someone you have met online, and I've seen people who have had great relationships online, and when you meet in person you realize you were so fake.
Not the same person.
It's not the same person. I don't think we will ever get rid of the need for person-to-person interaction. And that is why learning how to communicate, public speaking and communication skills are a necessity for everyone. Because when you have to get in front of a group of people for work, with family, it is important for you to learn how to express yourself. And what makes me very sad is someone who you can tell from their CV, if you're moderating an event or when you're speaking to someone and you can send their CV in advance, they're very well read and very well accomplished, and they start speaking and you feel sorry for them. And this hampers your networking skills because you can't communicate. There's a difference between not being able to communicate and being introverted. Being introverted doesn't mean that you can't communicate, you just rather not.
That's interesting. Maybe just some final comments or some final tips for us going forward, because one thing I've learned from this conversation is that I need to take that stigma out of networking like it's this big, bad, crazy, scary wolf, and think of it more in simpler terms, as a connection. So maybe just, you know, I know there are other people watching who feel the way that I do and are trying to do something about it. So maybe just some final comments on that.
For me, it has been deliberate. I tell myself that when I walk into a room, I have to leave knowing at least 2 other people. Which doesn't work when I walk into a room when I know someone, because then I will not talk to anyone else. So put yourself in situations where you're walking into a room where you know absolutely no one, and challenge yourself. And you will find that I have found in the things that I've engaged in, human beings surprise you. We're very simple in our needs and desires. You just want to talk to another human being who's not trying to push anything into your face, who's not trying to take advantage of you. Just another human being conversing with another human being, and most of them you never will meet or interact with, but you'll find the 1 or 2 or 10 that will be useful to you in future. They say your network is you know, very much linked to your worth, you know, professionally. So I think we all need to take it a bit more seriously, take the stigma out of it, and like you're saying, challenge ourselves to have those. Your network is your net worth. Your network is your net worth, as simple as that. And if people learned how to network, it becomes easier to find jobs or even to recommend people for jobs, because when you're looking for a job, you imagine that you get it in a job newspaper advert, which you will, which you may, but it's always easier when someone says, my friend is looking for
right, yeah,
or I have been asked to recommend an accountant, something. And when someone asks you to recommend, it's actually harder than you looking for something, because you're thinking it's my reputation on the line. If I recommend Joy and she goes and messes up, it's my reputation on the line. So the more you expand your network, you expand your net worth, and it doesn't have to be in high, snazzy, fancy events. It's in church, it's in your family groups, it's in the places that nature has put you in before you go to the networking event.
Interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joey.
You've broken it down in a way that I can understand, so hopefully those of you watching at home have gained something from our talk on networking. We're going to have a little bit more music from the band, but thanks again, Agatha, for being here and you know, showing us that networking is really just human communication. All right, little music from the band. We'll be right back.